All right, we're live. My countdown is going. This is All Things Unexplained. I'm Dr. Mounts. We're back again. We're a top 25 science charts podcast, at least some of the time. Find us on Venmo at Bigfoot UFO. We can't do this without you. And it's Dr. Lou tonight. We're so glad to be here. We were nominated for a People's Choice Podcast Award. Thanks to all of you. We appreciate you. Yay! Woohoo! Here we go.
All Things Unexplained. Hosted by Dr. Mounts.
Let's face it, we were always ready to roll without him anyway.
CJ Derringer.
Ain't nobody perfect, right?
And Smitty Neebs.
I've never planned out hardly anything my whole life. I just freeball.
Featuring Cajun Man.
I'm just old nobody, somebody looking for somebody.
Okay, wow. That was super exciting. I just have no idea what happened. We had a new little intro. Very cool, Tim. Nice work there. Though it threw me off. I was looking at me of the past. It was very different. Okay, welcome everybody to All Things Unexplained. We are so excited to have lots of people watching live with us. If you're listening to us later on podcasts, thank you for joining. We have such a great show for you today. We have author of the new book, The Cosmos Explained, host of the podcast Into the Universe. He's an associate in astrophysics at the American Museum of Natural History, a professor, a talented singer, which we have proof of from earlier tonight, co-author along with Neil deGrasse Tyson and Robert Arion of the book One Universe at Home and the Cosmos. And I think that's all the time we have for the show. So thanks for tuning in. It's Dr. Charles Liu. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. What a pleasure to be here.
Yes, we are so thrilled to have you. And wow, what a record you have there of all of the things that you've accomplished. We're grateful that you are joining us on our show. We've got lots in store for everyone tonight. Those of you that are joining us live on Facebook, we will be doing a section where we will take listener questions and give those to Dr. Lou or Chuck or Charles or however you would like to address them tonight. I'm going to go with Dr. Lou. So please do share those comments and questions with us. And I've got Dr. Mounts with us here this evening. Hello, Dr. Mounts. And I've got Smitty Neebs.
Great to be back.
It's good to be here. It's just good to have you with us, Dr. Lou.
Oh, it's so nice to be here with you. Thank you. Oh, Dr. Mounts, you're waving my book around. That's so kind.
Yeah.
Tremendous book available on Amazon.
We tried to make this book accessible to everybody. You see that the cover isn't like some fancy thing, right? But it's designed to be. Oh, you too, CJ. Oh, thank you. Yeah, the drawings, the art, it's all designed to tell people, look, the universe is not this foreign thing that's so far distant from us that we can't understand it. We are part of the universe, and the universe is part of us. We are as cool and as ordinary and as mysterious as everything else in the universe, be it a planet, a star, a galaxy, or even the cosmos itself.
Yes. Honestly, you did such a good job of that. Truly, you told wonderful stories too. I felt like this is coming from the girl that cried in her freshman year of college in my astronomy final because I couldn't understand any of it. And truly, I felt like I'm going to fail this exam. I left so defeated and so I gave up on science altogether until later on in life, and I found a new love for it. But in this book, I felt like, okay, this is really broken down in a way that sleep deprived, children have sucked all of my brain cells away. I can understand it. And there's pictures on every page, truly. So that's great. So what inspired you to do this book in the way that you did?
Well, coincidentally, it's kind of like the thing that inspired me was sort of what drove you to tears in your astronomy class in college. On behalf of all astronomy professors, I apologize for having done such a bad job on behalf of all of us, right? Of not conveying to you the wonder and the beauty of the cosmos in the way that you were able to receive it or wanted to receive it at that time, right? If we think about it, you can get incredibly technical about the universe, right? Cosmology with nucleosynthesis and nuclear fusion and Schwarzschild radii of black holes and the first stars and initial mass function. I could throw huge amounts of technical information at you, but you wouldn't get the story of the universe from its beginning to the present day and beyond. To me, telling the story was so important. And so when we had the opportunity to say, look, this wonderful publisher, Ivy Press, who came to me and said, what kind of story about the universe would you like to tell? They were thinking about like a history, like a timeline. And I said, I want pictures, but I want those pictures not just to be decorative or ornate. I want them to be scientifically accurate. So people can learn about the universe, what we know about the universe, and what we still don't know about the universe through pictures, as well as through words, as well as through a timeline of history. All these things combined together. And so this was my way of trying to create a story of the universe that anyone could pick up at any point, right? In the chapters, you can learn one part of it. But overall, you can learn the whole thing about it and enjoy it no matter what, and not feel like it's, not for you, right? And you're saying, CJ, I want this to be for you, right? And for everybody. That was what inspired me to write the book in this way.
Yeah, well, you did a beautiful job. And I read the whole thing and I truly felt like I understood so much more than I have before. So thank you for doing that. And you did do it on a timeline. And one thing I noticed was, chapter 1 was what, negative, what second were we at in chapter 1? Like
10 to the minus 43 seconds
Yes.
after the Big
I
Bang.
love chapter 1, the
Yeah.
first quadrillionth of a
of a
quadrillionth
quadrillionth
of a second.
of a second. Yes. So a lot happened then. And then you jumped to
Yes.
5 minutes after the Big Bang. And then we jumped to 400,000 years after the Big Bang. So what would you say in that time from 5 minutes to 400,000 years? What is the most important thing for people to understand that happened in that span of time?
It is that the universe was expanding. See, when we try to compute time in the cosmos, one of the most intuitive ways to think about time is measuring how much the universe has expanded since time equals 0, right? The Big Bang, the moment that time began to run. And as a result, the expansion of the universe is an increase in space as well as in time. It's still expanding today, and it continues to do so. And that's why we can keep track of cosmic time the way that they do. So during that time, nothing, say, exciting is happening, right? We picked 5 minutes because that's the time when the first atoms are forming. They're not even neutral atoms. They're atomic nuclei and electrons and light particles, photons, that are swirling all around one another. But between 5 minutes and 400,000 years, what happens is that the universe expands enough so that the light and the matter, the massive stuff like the hydrogen nuclei and the helium nuclei, can actually start to move independent of one another, something we call decoupling. And when that happens, that allows gravity to start doing its thing in the universe, that is, making things like planets and stars and eventually plants and people. And it allows the light to stream across the universe so that we can see what is going on other parts of the cosmos. That light imprint from 400,000 years ago is today, we call it the cosmic microwave background radiation, because it used to be as hot as the surface of the sun, but now it is so cold that we actually sense its temperature through AM radio. It's that cold. So that's the kind of thing that happened, that transitional period between when matter and energy were all interlocked and kind of dragging on one another, to the time when they began to stream freely of one another and allow for the rest of the universe to be built.
Wow.
Awesome.
Dr. Lou,
Yes.
something that I had a hard time wrapping my brain around, and throughout the entire book, it kept coming back to me like it's haunting my nightmares almost, is at the very beginning of the book, at that first quadrillionth of a second, you say that there was a singularity, zero density, and infinite volume. And I just find that so difficult to comprehend.
Right. The idea of a singularity, infinite zero volume, has a circumstance. It actually is rooted in math. In true physics, originally, hundreds of years ago, there was really no way to imagine something like that has no size and yet actually has some sort of mass, which means that it is infinitely dense. And mathematicians, hundreds of years ago, started thinking about this. I'd say around the 1700s. They're like, you can actually create a circumstance on a math page where you can have that kind of singularity, but you can't do it in real life. So there was a lot of mathematical theorizing and actually proofs and really careful calculations about how you can deal with a singularity in the world if one ever existed. No one thought of one ever would. But then we realized that they could, because Albert Einstein's general theory of relativity explained that space isn't just a sort of emptiness in which stuff exists. Space is actually its own thing that grows and can also thus twist and bend and warp, kind of like a 3D version of a trampoline or a spandex swimsuit or something like that. And if you can twist spandex, right, and or space-time or anything like that, then you can make a singularity. And that's where your first inkling that a singularity could exist could have happened. A couple decades after that, heck, not even, within 10 years, brilliant mathematicians were saying, hey, I recognize this bending stuff and the ability to make singularities. And in fact, it was a Belgian priest, a guy named Georges Lemaitre, who came up with the idea, you know what? If the universe is expanding, then that means at one point the universe could have been so small that it was at zero volume, and thus it had to have infinite density, and thus it was a singularity. And so was born this idea. Georges Lemaitre called this the primeval atom. We today call it the Big Bang singularity.
So is that just one of the theories of how the Big Bang could have happened? Because I recall reading something that you wrote about possibly two multiverses touching and creating our universe.
Right. That's a great point. And this is where we're talking about that math now, right? We at 1/4 of a second, right, all the way to zero, even though there's a really small number of seconds, there's actually a really long way mathematically to actual 0, 0, 0, right? So our physics really can only explain the universe starting from about a trillionth of a quadrillionth of a second after the singularity. All right. So the singularity itself, all the way down to that 0 point, can only be explained mathematically, and therefore we haven't been able to show whether or not that singularity existed because two 5-dimensional universes actually came in contact, kind of like a couple of soap bubbles in your children's bath, right? And thus created a skin of sorts, which is a 4-dimensional space-time, which is our universe. Or if somehow there was something that existed but then kind of blew up in size within some larger structure. Again, not a space-time like our universe, but some other structure with 3 or 4 or more dimensions, maybe 10 or 11 dimensions, things that we can't grasp in our daily lives, but can exist mathematically. And as with all science that's at the cutting edge, the challenge for scientists is to say, okay, these are hypotheses, these are good ideas, and how can we confirm or falsify them? Whether or not they're true or false, we have to design experiments to test them. Up to this point, we astronomers and physicists are pretty confident that we've been able to test the Big Bang theory to be correct all the way down to about a quadrillionth of a second after the Big Bang. And then all bets are off. There's where that multiverse thing can happen. There's where that strange multidimensional thing can happen before that threshold in time.
What's your favorite idea of what it could be? What do you want it to be?
My favorite idea is the one that hasn't been thought of yet.
Okay.
I really think that people are onto this thing. The 5-dimensional membrane connecting to create the 4-dimensional space-time idea has been developed primarily by Lisa Randall at Harvard. She and Balasundaram, I don't know where he is right now, but they kind of built this idea where you could have these dimensions connect with one another and thus explain a lot of our uncertainties about our own universe. For example, why is gravity so dominant on large scales, yet completely insignificant on nuclear scales, right? So that's sort of where we are at the moment. I think people are close to the truth, but there is something there that's still missing, and people really recognize that. Even people like Randall and Sundram, or all the other people who are working on things like eternal inflation, Alan Guth's inflationary model. There is another. I'm just throwing names out. Don't worry, you can go look them up if you're interested. The bottom line is, I think they're all kind of close. They'll kind of like see different parts of the elephant, but they haven't seen the whole elephant yet. So I'm waiting for that thing that ties them all together.
Waiting for the elephant. Okay,
Yeah.
I like it. I like Stacy's comment here.
Listener Stacy David Severn says, I think I just learned that my bathing suit has infinite density. Mind blown. Sounds like a problem, though.
That's awesome. Okay.
I don't think it's a problem if you like to eat a lot, as long as it's dense.
Oh, so in your book, you do everything on a timeline, before, current, what's happening in the future. As elementary as you can you explain how scientists and mathematicians date these events? How do they figure out when these things happened?
Great question. What we have to do is to figure out on a cosmic level how to translate the expansion of the universe to the seconds and hours and minutes that we're used to counting time with. And the way to make that connection, astronomers use a tool called redshift. It turns out that the way the universe is expanding, it causes every spot in the universe to move away from every other spot in the universe. And as a result, if I measure something far away, that means it's probably moving faster than something that's closer by on a cosmological scale. An analogy I like to use is fireworks. Every time a fireworks shell explodes in the sky, it turns into a big, beautiful flower kind of right away. That means that the things that got to the edge of that flower had to have moved faster than the stuff that moved in really close. So the expansion of a fireworks shell is like an analogy of how the universe is expanding away from us, and distant galaxies or black holes are being carried along for the ride. So astronomers have spent almost 100 years now trying to measure the relationship between how far away an object is and how fast it moves away from us because of the expansion of the universe. Once you get that speed, you can translate that speed into a distance, and that distance into the amount of time it takes for light to go from that distant object to us. And from that, we can then get a number of years ago that it happened. So that's the indirect way we get all the way back to the Big Bang. Now, after the Earth forms, we have a new technique. I don't want to go too deeply into it, but it has to do with radioactivity. And that is a really nice way, right around 4.5 billion years ago, when the Earth formed and the Sun formed, that we can start figuring out time based on atomic clocks that nature has provided for us since our Earth was formed.
Yes,
Awesome.
so much.
Thanks. For those that are just tuning in with us, we're chatting with Dr. Lou, author of the new book, The Cosmos
There it
Explained.
is.
Go pick up a copy today. I'm telling you, it's beautiful, number one. It's very easy to understand. Every page has some sort of image.
Available on Amazon.
It's really great.
That's where we got
Very well
ours.
done.
Gets to your house in 2 days. Also, the host of his own podcast called The Luniverse, L-I-U, Luniverse.
Into the Luniverse, right? Is it Into the Luniverse?
The Luniverse
Okay.
is, I think, the official title, but Into the Universe people talk about that way too.
Okay.
I have to tell you that I didn't come up with that idea. I thought the Universe, it felt a little self-indulgent, but everyone else around me said, that's the obvious
Yeah,
name for the
I think it
podcast.
is. It's wonderful.
And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
That's neat.
as long as other people like it.
I thought you were going to credit Stan Lee for a second. Stan the man.
Well, I am a true believer. So.
Oh,
Face front,
okay. Well,
fearless fans.
I have
I was a comic book fan a little long
Are
ago.
you a comic book fan? Tim was wondering. Dr. Mouse was wondering.
Big time.
I mean, I could kind of tell.
Oh yeah.
He was like, that could be a whole separate show, boys. Settle down, settle down. We'll do another comic book show.
But I've got so many questions about the Avengers, X-Men, Spider-Man.
Yeah, we definitely need to do that.
I can see it happening already. It's spiraling. It's spiraling out of control.
Can't wait till all the universes are melded together. It's been set up now so that the next TV shows can all like have X-Men and Fantastic Four and Spider-Man and the Avengers all together. It'll be fun.
No Doctor Strange 2 spoilers. I know you've seen it. I haven't seen it yet. But I do know Wanda does
Mom
some bad
hasn't
things.
seen it.
I'm not gonna. I do know that, but I haven't seen it. we did a few shows on WandaVision.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Did you talk about the ship of Theseus?
No, we did
No.
not.
Did we?
I loved that. The best part, in my opinion, of the entire movie, television, podcast, whatever series so far was the. Dare we spoil this a little bit? I mean, it's been a little while, so I think it's
Go for it. Let's do it. Warning, spoilers.
okay. When the spoiler alert in 3, 2, 1. When the white vision is up against the multicolored vision, and they're circling in the library, and they're trying to talk to one another. They present a marvelous dialogue, which I think is the very best dialogue, like I said, of the entire franchise so far. And the person is trying to, the real vision, or the provisional vision, is trying to explain to the white vision who they are, right? He says, I presume you're familiar with the metaphysical paradox, right, known as the ship of Theseus in identity metaphysics.
Yes.
Right? And then the white vision says, naturally, the ship of Theseus is an artifact in a museum. Over time, its planks of wood rot and are replaced with new planks. When no original plank remains, is it still the ship of Theseus? Right? And then secondly, if that old wood is repaired and cleansed of the rot and reassembled, is that the ship of Theseus? And the two of them think, and they say, both are the true ship. Neither is the true ship. It's amazing. It's amazing. I loved it. I thought it was awesome.
Total paradox.
Shoot.
We don't have
Should've
to hang
watched
around
that
too
show with
much
you.
on this, but my theory, White Vision is off to the West Coast to start the West Coast Avengers. That's just my theory.
Well, in the 80s and 90s, Vision, this is comic book stuff now. And again, I'm betraying my age and my childhood and everything. But the Vision basically decides in his logic that it is appropriate for him to take over the world because the world is just so terrible that he should just run the world. But then he eventually sees the error of his ways and self-destructs in order to save the world from an evil version of himself, basically. And what is left is this sort of white version, a ghost-like vision. And that creature has to develop an identity and restore his love for Wanda and how to live and things like that. And the whole West Coast Avengers stuff, that's all part of it. Yeah, the Vision started the West Coast Avengers before he turned white, because that was part of his grand plan to take over the world. It was very interesting. He wanted to split the Avengers up so they couldn't concentrate and defeat him. Anyway, too much fun stuff. I'm so sorry. Went on and on and on.
Yeah, that's okay. Just so you know, we are all still waiting on Mephisto. Like, where's Mephisto?
Yeah.
What's going on here? But anyway,
I'm waiting.
I just kept thinking, anytime now Mephisto's jumping out, but it didn't happen.
Well,
Sorry,
for
CJ.
me, Dormammu is good enough for me. All right,
Yeah,
sorry.
Dormammu.
Please continue your questioning. I'm just peeking too far out here.
No, that's great, mate. You should come back. We need to come back and have a Marvel show.
Yes, that would be awesome.
Geeking out. Y'all are geeking out. It's awesome. It's great. It's great. Yeah. A Marvel show it is. It shall be. Okay. We're going to circle back to the book.
I feel like we got chastised.
We'll table the Marvel comic talk for another episode because I can see what's going to happen already. It's going to happen. Okay. So back to the book. Dark matter. Lots of discussion about dark matter. Lots of question about dark matter. Seems a very important piece to the puzzle of our universe. Do we know anything about dark matter other than we know that it must exist?
We know what it's not. Does that help? We know that it's
Sure.
not made out of protons, neutrons, or electrons, or literally any other particle we've ever discovered. We know that the quantum mechanics of what we understand today, often what we call the standard model of particle physics, cannot explain the existence of dark matter. So what's happening is that right now, experimentalists are trying to find exotic new particles. They've done all kinds of interesting experiments deep underground, both in Europe and in North America and elsewhere. They're trying to see if some particle could be found that could explain all this. And they haven't. They've only been able to place upper bounds on the existence of these things. They keep having to change and adjust. Their original hypotheses are proven to be incorrect, and so they're readjusting their hypotheses to try to understand it. All that we know is that we know it's not those things. But when we astronomers look out in the universe, it is totally there. Absolutely there. The existence of dark matter has been confirmed again and again and again with every galaxy, with every cluster of galaxies, with every large scale motion of the universe that's measured. We know more and more for certain that for every pound of stuff that are made up of protons and neutrons and electrons, there are 4 or 5 or even 6 pounds of stuff that are not.
Wow. And yeah, it does.
Wow. We're going to take questions later, but this one seems valid at the moment. Is dark matter the same as antimatter?
Great question. Dark matter is not antimatter. Antimatter is matter particles of the kind that we know exist currently, things like electrons, for example, but with the opposite electrical charge. So, for example, the antimatter version of the electron is called the positron. The antimatter version of the proton is called the antiproton. And we know, we have measured very carefully, and we are certain within experimental errors, that the dark matter out in the universe is not made up of things like positrons and antiprotons and things like that.
Okay, great. I agree, Trent. Smart people are awesome. And smart people can sing too. Dr. Liu,
Whoa.
I'm going to put you on the spot.
no.
Because my next question is about black holes. And I've had this little ditty stuck in my head from your Instagram account. And I've literally been singing it to myself every single night. So would you sing us your black holes song?
Let me first say, by the way, that this comment that smart people are awesome. Yes, it's true, but you know what? Not smart people are awesome too. In fact, this is something I really like to get across.
Smitty thanks you.
You hear that, Smitty? We're good.
I do not consider myself a smart person in the sense that we people are all essentially as smart. Like within a bell curve, we are all basically the same level of intelligence within some order of magnitude. There's no single human being that is so remarkably more intelligent than everybody else, that we wind up having to think of them as being on a different level. What we do instead is that we're just a little bit better at this, a little bit better at that. I am maybe really better at thinking about the universe because I've been doing it for so long, but Steph Curry is better shooting the 3-point than I am, right? And different people do different things better, and that's just sort of, we're all smart in different areas. I think that's a really, really great way to put it. So please don't think of this as intelligence, but think of it as interest and what I like to do and what I like to think about. And all of us are in that same boat. We really are.
Dr. Lou, listener Willie M. wants to know, can you change a fuel filter on a 74 Plymouth without Google?
Yes.
Not the 74. We owned a 77 Plymouth, Dodge Aspen, which is the version of the Plymouth Volare back then. So I can't do it anymore because that car is long since disintegrated. But that's a great question about the 77, and I can't do it. No. Okay, the song, Black Holes.
Oh yes.
The thing that the reason this song came about, CJ, and you may know this already, but it's that a lot of people think that black holes are like these giant vacuum cleaners, right? They just sort of suck you in, and that if you come near them, a regular black hole will come in and just like absorb you. It turns out that black holes actually are much more innocuous than that. They're very pleasant, actually. If you stay far away from them, they don't bother you at all. In fact, if the sun were to become a black hole today, we would not suddenly be sucked in toward the sun. There would be other kinds of radiation things that go on, like our sunlight would be replaced by X-rays and things like that. But really, gravitationally speaking, it won't cause us any more trouble than the sun does unless we get close to it. When we get into it, when we get to its event horizon, it's called, then they're stuck. Then that's your new home. You are not leaving. That's the inspiration for this song. And so that's why I take a cue and I thank Harry Belafonte for the melody. And it goes like this. Black holes don't suck, but if you fall in one, then that's your new home. No. You want to join in? They don't suck, they don't suck, they don't suck, they don't suck.
No, they don't.
But if you fall in one, then that's your
new home. Yeah. Hooray!
Okay.
Seriously, I
Same
went to sleep last night and that was just going over and over in my head. So, black holes don't suck.
Yeah, good job. Good job.
If you get to the event horizon, you're stuck there. And I've heard Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson use the term spaghettified several times about once you enter a black hole. What does happen, or at least what do we think happens, when you get to that event horizon?
Tu picantin, 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 picantin. Come, all our listeners, tune in to next time.
You've been listening to All Things Unexplained. If you liked this podcast, please do give us a 5-star rating and leave us a review. If you would like to hear more All Things Unexplained, be sure to follow us wherever you listen to your podcasts. Our show depends on the support of listeners like you. To help keep us going, please be sure to visit patreon.com/allthingsunexplained. Our Patreon patrons get early access to podcasts, as well as exclusive audio and video clips. Or you can find us on Venmo under the business accounts. Just look for @BigfootUFO. Additionally, you can support us at buymeacoffee.com/unexplained. If you can't get enough of us, go ahead and check us out at allthings-unexplained.com. A special thanks to our producer, director, sound mixer, editor, and the man who wears far too many hats. No, seriously, he wears a lot of hats, Dr. Tim Mounts. Without you, we couldn't keep the lights on. Thanks for listening to All Things Unexplained.
Did we just lose everybody?
No.
I can hear you.
We definitely lost.
Start intro. The intro's supposed to be playing.